Welcome to Inspired Living with Mark and Kim. Every Wednesday, Mark and Kim, along with their special guests, will explore thought-provoking topics and ideas that promote creativity, self-help, healing, happiness, and well-being to inspire you on your spiritual journey. Each week, Mark and Kim will discuss different paths to achieving a more spiritual, balanced, happy, and healthy lifestyle. Topics will elevate consciousness and range from metaphysics to the human and social experience, and all things spiritual. Welcome to an inspired community that offers support, encouragement, and new ways of thinking. Mark and Kim are tested, certified, and professional spiritual mediums, metaphysical teachers, healers, and spiritual advisors with their own individual spiritual practices in Seattle, Washington, and Los Angeles, California. You are the inspired and the inspiration.
You are the inspired and the inspiration. This is Inspired Living with Mark and Kim here on OMTimes Radio, the voice of consciousness. I'm your co-host, Mark Lanehart, the intuitive prospector, coming to you live my last day here in Marysville, Washington, as I am moving down to the beautiful Seattle, Washington. And if you're just getting ready to start your day or you're winding down into your evening, we just want to thank you as an inspired listener for taking the time out to spend the next hour of awesome information that we're going to be talking about. And, of course, with me, as every Wednesday, is my co-host, the lovely and talented Kim Thalken, founder of Love First in Encino, California. Hello, my dear. Welcome back to the West Coast.
Hey there, Mark. Good afternoon, inspired listeners. It is so great to be here today, and thank you for the welcome back. I did share, I think, the last couple of weeks that I was going to be heading out to the beautiful state of Massachusetts over the Labor Day holiday weekend to spend some time studying with oftentimes described as the best medium in the world, Mavis Patelis. So it was a wonderful, exhilarating weekend. I think I'm still coming off the spiritual high, and I'm happy to be back. I mean, I think that's kind of what happens at these workshops, right, Mark?
Oh, yeah, very much so. And just adjusting back to the West Coast time on that 3-hour time difference, it's kind of hard to catch up on the sleep and the clock, the internal clock, to get that to reset. So, but yeah, Mavis Patilla, she is awesome. I do look forward to mentoring with her someday. But I've heard a lot of great things about the work she is doing in spirit and just what she's teaching. So, how was your experience in Boston? How was the weather in Boston? I love Boston.
Actually, Boston was beautiful. I couldn't have asked for a better couple of days out there. It's one of my favorite places by far. I just think that the New England states are just absolutely gorgeous, so different than California. Of course, California's got its own beauty, as do each one of the states. But it was a great weekend, and I feel like my life has changed because of it. So I was in the right place.
It was great. We like to call that spiritual awesomeness. And
That's right.
I love New England this time of the year, and the Pacific Northwest. Up here in Seattle, the weather is very similar to the Boston area with the fall and the foliage and all the leaves turn. It's just a beautiful time of year to visit either the Boston East Coast area or the Pacific Northwest.
Yeah, fall's coming on us here, and those leaves are going to be changing pretty soon here, and it's just a magnificent sight to see. I do want to give a shout out to a new inspired listener in our community today, Eddie Ransom in the Boston, Massachusetts area. Eddie is a very talented medium and healer and a new community member. So welcome, Eddie, and thank you for being with us. And it was a pleasure to meet you. Mm-hmm.
Welcome. We love our inspired listeners, and like I said, thank you very much for tuning in. If you do miss the live broadcast of Inspired Living with Mark and Kim, you can always catch us over on OMTimes Radio Archives. You just go to OMTimes Radio. You can also catch us on Podbean, SoundCloud, and YouTube. And if you are listening live right now, we would love to have you join us on our social media accounts and ask your questions there, both on Inspired Living Radio on Facebook, our Twitter account, which is Inspired for Us, the number 4 Us, and we're also on Instagram and Google Plus Community. And this week, we're going to be talking all about the power of woman. And we have a very special guest today. She's actually a returning guest, so this will be the first time we've had a returning guest. She was on a few weeks ago. And before we jump into the introduction of our guest, I do wanted to remind the inspired listeners of our September positive affirmation. This is something that we do try to do for every show, is give a positive affirmation. Just a reminder of what's going on in the world and just positive feedback for you and things that you can do. We have this posted on our Instagram with a great picture this week of Seattle, and we try to do this every week. But the September positive affirmation is from Dr. Wayne Dyer, who passed away sadly in August. And in memory of him, we've used his positive affirmation, and it simply states, "The act of being inspired by some great purpose allows you to feel the essence of a spiritual being having a human experience, rather than the other way around." So that's your September positive affirmation. And as far as our guest today, we are going to welcome back Renée Starr. Renée Starr is a mythologist, sacred storyteller, spiritual coach, and artist. Ms. Starr has her own line of herbal, ritual, and goddess products, and today's show is all about the goddess. We're going to be talking about who is she, how do we find her, how do we make contact with her. Her branded movement, Back to the Goddess, offers classes, workshops, and goddess circles, as well as a variety of women's retreats for women everywhere to awaken their sacredness, their inner goddess, and rekindle a relationship with the divine feminine. And we're going to be talking all about her new book. I'm sure she's very excited for this. Welcome back to the show, Renée Starr.
Thank you so much. Thank you both. It's really great to be back.
Well, we're happy to have you back. So let's talk about your new book. Are you excited? When does the actual release come out?
I am very excited, and the release is September 23rd. It's in pre-sale right now on Amazon, and September 23rd it will be released.
September 23rd, and that's a great date. 23 always has, from a numerology standpoint, that's always an interesting number from a spiritual standpoint. So let's talk about your book. You Are Woman, You Are Divine. Tell us how you came to write this book, and what's the information contained in the book, and we'll get into some more details about the goddess and how do I find her? Where's she at?
Great. All good questions. Yes, very good questions. In fact, the premise of my entire book, those questions. The book came about, it's been a life's work. I have been searching, researching, and seeking the divine feminine in the world, within myself, the goddess, most of my adult life. It was something that came about in my early 20s. And all of the research, all of that journey has brought me through different spiritualities, different religions, different practices. I've learned so much about her, about the world, about women. And this book is the culmination of all of that. It is a guidebook for the modern woman to return not only to a relationship with the goddess, but to the goddess within herself.
What I know this has been a journey for you over many years, Renée, so how exciting it is that you've been able to culminate all of this information to one central point that people can learn from your experiences. What do you mean by back to the goddess, and what's the importance of connecting to your feminine energy?
Very good questions. Returning to the goddess is a way of a woman, most especially, and all people in the world, but a woman to return to her relationship to the goddess is to return to her feminine power, creativity, to awaken herself, to speak with her feminine voice, to connect to her innate stillness. All of those wonderful qualities that are imbued and that we embody as a human are reflected in the larger picture of the goddess or the divine feminine. Those are terms that are interchangeable.
And when we talk about
power of that for
oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
There was, so when you were talking about the woman returning to the feminine aspect of herself and creativity and things along those lines, what if a man wants to tap into building his creativity as well? How would one do that?
Well, when a man works with any of the qualities that are naturally given through and by the goddess, the divine feminine, he is working with that part of himself. And if you've ever looked at the yin-yang symbol, you'll notice it has the opposite color as a little dollop, a circle within. So that shows us that as a woman, I contain a little bit of masculine energy, and a man would contain a little bit of feminine. It's there for many different reasons, to relate to each other, first and foremost, and also to draw upon when you need it. But individuals who identify with and who are a woman, and when I say identify with, I mean those that are transgendered, those that are two-spirited, those that are born biologically women, anyone who is female has a predominance of feminine energy and essence. And when a man taps into that, he is working with the goddess aspect. He is using that to create, to, work with his feminine power, etc.
And why do you think, now we're going to be heading to break here in a minute, but I'd love to kind of start the question out at least. Why do you think that there are so many of us that are not connected to that part of us?
Well, that is a long-winded, long, deep, amazing question. However, I have learned to simplify that question. The divine feminine, the goddess essence of the world, can never be excised from it. It is one of the two principal essences of the world, masculine, feminine. What has happened because of Western religion, the Judeo-Christian religion, the expulsion of pagan religions, what has happened is the goddess has been shielded or hidden from us.
Renee, if you can just hold that thought for a moment, because we're going to be heading into break and we'll continue on with a pretty interesting topic here when we come back. We'll be back in 2 minutes.
Great.
The Real Conscious Connection. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
If you remember living fearlessly, joyfully, and in a world filled with adventure, happiness, pleasure, and unbridled living, then this show is for you. Join me, Dame Nicole Brandon, as I bring you the world's top experts in wealth, creativity, flow, seat-edging technology, space, wellness, health, love, lust, and passion, all merging together each week here at the Hub of Happiness. Mondays at 6 p.m. Pacific Time and 9 p.m. Eastern Time on Passionate Living, where you can ride on the magic carpet ride of living and learn how to lead a passionately wild, exciting, and outrageously amazing life.
Host your show on IOM FM, the radio network of OMTimes Media, one of the more recognized brand names in the conscious community, and is backed by the extensive marketing reach of OMTimes. Hosting a show on IOM FM immediately connects you with our extensive dedicated community. OMTimes Magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment, a philanthropic organization. Their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. OMTimes, co-creating a more conscious lifestyle.
Do you want to be a better communicator? Do you want to better connect with the important people in your life? Do you want to enrich your relationships? If so, join me, Matthew Cooper, on the Positive Control System Show every Wednesday evening at 11 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time on OMTimes Radio. I'll meet you there.
Free your mind. Expand your soul. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
And welcome back to Inspired Living with Mark and Kim. Today's special guest is Renée Starr, and we're talking all about the woman's journey, the goddess, everything woman energy. And welcome back to the show, Renée.
Thank you so much. Good to be here.
Yeah, we're gonna kind of get into the good details about this book, and if we have young women listening to the show, I think this is going to be a very educational and inspiring message for them. And I was going through your statement that's in right from your book, and if you don't mind, I just wanted to read a little bit of that so our inspired listeners, especially young women that might be going through this the same challenges that you went through that helped you to write this book. I just wanted to read that if I could. It just says, for as long as I can remember, I've been in search of something special, sacred, and holy. This search was not much about finding it in the world, but more about finding it within myself. And even as a young girl, I recognized my feminine nature and essence, and while I did not yet recognize that the essence was sacred, I did feel that it might be something very special. And I loved everything about being a girl as I grew older. I loved everything about being a young woman. That is, until I started to receive negative body image messages and inappropriate sexual advances that led me to believe that I was less than others, imperfect, and that I was not enough. It eroded any emerging feelings that being a woman was special. I think that's important for the young girls today too, especially with all of those body images and everything that we see in marketing and social media, and you have to look like a certain person or act a certain way. And I thought that was a very powerful statement for you.
Thank you. It was also something I felt was important to reveal publicly. It has so much secrecy surrounding it, which, really leads us back to Kim's question just before we broke, was that the goddess herself has been hidden from us. She has been kept from us. And that is actually part of her nature, that mystery, that secrecy. But when it turns into a dysfunctional situation, that mystery can be extraordinarily painful and damaging. But when it's revealed, when her mystery is revealed, when a woman's sense of her feminine essence is healthily revealed and she feels good about being a woman, stand aside, because that is a glorious, magnificent thing to witness. And that is what I cultivate daily in my life. It's still a struggle. I have a lot of issues that I still work with, but I do them with the goddess.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And let's, for me, like we were talking earlier, as a guy, wanting to read this book and learn more about the goddess, how do women, or why, I guess the appropriate question is why women aren't connecting back to their feminine side? Is it just there's just too much going on in the world? There's just a lot of distractions?
Well, there's an awful lot of pressure for women to be the same as men today. Mm-hmm. That was something that got started quite a while ago, the equality movement, which I commend, but also recognize has created a large imbalance for many women and honestly for men as well. There is a way for a woman to be in the world extraordinarily powerful, extraordinarily heard, and extraordinarily magnificent without becoming like a man or without raising her masculine energy higher than her feminine. And that's what I'm hoping to restore, is to inspire women actually to restore their feminine essence and remain as powerful, if not more so, than any time in history before.
And let's talk a little bit about the history of the goddess. I always think it's important to know where the concept of goddess came from, what the history behind it is. I know for myself as an inspired listener for the show, I'm always curious. It's not a subject I know a lot about, but I would love to learn more on the history of it.
Great. Yeah, the history is quite honestly older than any religion today. The earth-based spirituality that the goddess comes from was the original worship. When early peoples recognized that the earth was like our mother, they began to make these associations. They were very strong associations, very powerful. And they began to recognize that life, anything that had life essence within it, was female, was feminine. And they worshipped that because they recognized that we come from that. The masculine essence of the world is a catalyst to that life. Just, a macrocosm, microcosm, as above, so below. Our own reproduction as humans, animals' reproduction, all living things, the way they reproduce, needs the masculine and feminine. You can't simply have masculine or feminine. So her history is ancient as time itself. The first time people recognized that life was a feminine, that creation, life coming from creation, was a feminine act. That's when she began.
Very interesting, Renee. I want to just touch on an idea that you talked about earlier here about in today's world, women are being called, with the feminine movement and so forth, to raise their masculine energy. And sometimes some of the demands of today's world kind of ask of that as well, with a lot of women being the breadwinner in their household. You're seeing some of the men actually stay home with the kids. So there's all kinds of shifts happening with that. And so with some of these demands of the modern day, and we talk about the modern woman, how do we bring that back into balance again? If in fact that's what your life requires, is that you are the breadwinner, and some of the roles shift in that way, how do we manage to kind of still be able to bring that, at least back in the home, maybe bring that back into balance?
Well, it's very interesting, Kim. As long as there have been women and men in the world, those roles have shifted. There are many cultures where women were leaders within the community, and they never lost their feminine essence. Why? Because the goddess was present within the community, within the lifestyle. So they were worshipped as the embodiment of her. My book helps women recognize and reclaim and reawaken, literally to restore and return and remember that they are the embodiment of this. And it's very interesting. I do get a lot of question from men and women. Well, is this anti-men? Absolutely not. This is pro-balance. And to answer your question very clearly, a woman must find the balance of her predominant feminine and her little bit of masculine within her. If she raises one too high, she's out of balance. So the way to bring that back, and I describe this in the book as well, there are many, many rituals. There are many ways to work with the goddess. One of them is through sacred story, the mythology, our sacred mythic history as women. And by returning to those myths, we are able to see ourselves in them as women, powerful women with qualities of the goddess. And we can identify and we learn from them how to be that way in the modern day.
How does a woman know if that part of her is imbalanced? What might she be experiencing in her own life that would say, hey, you know what, I think I better take a closer look at what's going on within?
Very good question. I actually addressed it. There's a chapter devoted to it, and that is there's a whole checklist of attributes that can show up, but mainly what you'll notice are physical imbalances on the right side of your body, because that is the masculine side of your body. Anything that is overused, overworked will suffer, and that usually happens. Women experience lower back issues, reproductive issues, usually on the right side, neck, shoulder, etc. Also, when you have issues with intimacy, even in same-sex relationships, you can identify that as an imbalance of your feminine essence. Whenever you are unable to stop and be still, if you have to go all the time and always be active energy, active essence is masculine, stillness, tranquility is feminine. So you have to bring a lot more of that back into your life.
I can definitely see the importance of that. So you had talked a little bit about, too, in your on your journey of connecting more with the divine and understanding the divine feminine, you said because you wanted to move into greater states of truth and closer to God and the feminine side of God. So my question would be, and this is, I know is a biggie, and we've got 3 minutes before we go to break, but I'm going to ask it anyways. Who is God? How do you define God? And is God masculine and feminine, or one or the other?
Well, that is a very good question, and one that can be very complicated, but I've learned to simplify the response to that as God as the whole is a Judeo-Christian concept, which I actually embrace as well. And the aspects of God are both feminine and masculine. So within God as the whole, we have the divine feminine and the divine masculine of God. And we as humans are the reflection, the embodiment of those two essences, those two aspects. When we find union, we are actually reflecting the wholeness of God.
So when we say the term, when you use the word goddess, is that so? What does that mean, goddess? That's the feminine aspect of God?
It is. It is actually, the divine feminine is more accurately the feminine aspect of God. The goddess is another term for that. So it's a little complicated, but if you remember that the divine feminine is pure essence, and the goddess has a little bit more personification. She's a little bit more tangible. We can have a relationship with her. And then within that, there are even more delineations, and those are her personifications, all of the different goddesses that personify the goddess as a whole.
Wow. Okay, that's a lot to digest.
That's why it took me 3 years to write the book. That took me my whole life to find out, to research. So
I can see
but the
why.
Book is very, the book is very explained. It's very presentable and very readable, so you don't leave the book feeling confused.
Yeah, because it feels like there's some really significant concepts in there. One, couple that I'm still digesting here as I learn more about it through our own conversation. We're going to be heading into break, so be with us. We'll be back in 2 minutes.
The cutting edge of conscious radio. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Hi, this is Angela Levesque, host of Entanglement Radio. Join me Wednesdays at 12 p.m. Eastern for inspiring conversations with visionaries in spiritual science and conscious healing. Entanglement Radio, Wednesdays at 12 p.m. Eastern. Transcendent talk for the conscious mind.
Being a radio host on IOM FM allows you to build your show on a rich platform with the power of the internet to fulfill your outreach goals and connect with a very specialized and global online audience, unlimited by time and distance. OMTimes Radio will provide you with web relevance, a recognizable conscious brand, and with the standard of excellence that has accompanied every single OMTimes endeavor. Host your show with OMTimes Radio Network. The number one reason girls drop out of school in sub-Saharan Africa is lack of access to feminine hygiene products. The Pads for Schoolgirls Project, an outreach of Humanity Healing International, is changing this paradigm by setting up sewing programs at schools, teaching girls a vocational skill, while producing the reusable pads that help keep them attending classes. The girls pay it forward by making and giving pad kits to other girls in need. To learn more, visit humanityhealing.org. Humanity Healing is where your heart is.
Live with medium Lisa Phoenix, Mediumship Messages and Musings, explores mediumship and all things metaphysical. Lisa Phoenix invites you to reach above and beyond your everyday experiences, to explore new dimensions in the spirit world. She will do live readings to connect callers to their loved ones in spirit, shares engaging stories and teachings from her own personal experience, and will have intriguing conversations with other mediums, spiritual teachers, and healers to help you understand the metaphysical world so you can connect to these forces in your day-to-day life. Join your host on this magical and metaphysical journey into the world of spirit every Sunday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time.
Bringing a more conscious lifestyle to your world. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
And welcome back to Inspired Living with Mark and Kim. Today's special guest and returning guest, Renée Starr. We're talking about her brand new book that's coming out on September 23rd, You Are Woman, You Are Divine, The Modern Woman's Journey Back to Goddess. So right before we got into break, we were talking some very interesting stuff. And I was trying to follow along as a guy. Sometimes we're a little bit slower on keeping up. But I wanted to ask you, how should women really adjust their lives to include the goddess? How do they do that? And how would I, as a guy, bring in the goddess more into my life and what I'm doing and the work that I'm doing here in Seattle?
Another good question. As much as she wishes, there's no requirement. You can do very little. You can devote your entire life to her. I've gone in and out of both extremes. I've spent part of my life devoting myself daily, hourly to her, and also spending many, many weeks, months, and even years not even paying attention, just going about my life. So as much or as little as a woman chooses to is more than enough and is perfectly okay. There's no requirement. The goddess only asks that you recognize her in yourself. That's all. And as a man, you can look at all of the qualities that the goddess embodies within women, within the world, and simply work with those qualities. The first one I would recommend would be stillness, meditation, tranquility, quietude, because most men are very, very active. And when women are very active, they're tapping into their masculine essence. So finding those quiet moments is a very goddessy thing to do.
Now, for our listening audience, they may be asking, like myself, I do meditate on a daily basis. How would I bring – kind of walk us through how you would bring the goddess into your meditation practice. Like how would I is it through visualization, through clairvoyance, through clairsentience, to feel her, to see her? How would I go about connecting with her through meditation or other modalities of being still?
It's taken me, Mark, it's such a wonderful area to talk about. It's taken me almost all of my adult life to realize that simplicity is key. So when I hear this question, I hear it often from many of my women clients and male clients, how do I do this? I respond with simply invite her to be present with you by recognizing that she is here already in life. Everything that is living is imbued with her essence. All life is the goddess. It is the mother, the great mother. So recognizing that is an invitation to bring her in. Consciously inviting her by saying, you can say it out loud, you can say it in your mind, say it in your heart, having the intention to go into meditation, to meet with her, she will come to you. It may take a little bit, it may not. I did experience it once. It was the most profound and life-changing event of my life. It was during a Kabbalistic meditation, and she came to me, through me, as me, and filled me with the most profound sense of feminine energy I have ever experienced. And when she left, I had the taste of honey in my mouth. And the rabbi that I was working with, when I explained my experience, said to me that it's written in Kabbalistic texts within the Torah that the Shekhinah, who is the divine feminine to the Judaic Kabbalistic practices, she will taste like honey in your mouth when she arrives. And I was so touched by that. It changed my life.
So I do a lot of getting out in nature. I do a lot of workshops that incorporate nature and spiritual hikes, hiking around and connecting to that energy. Is the goddess the same as Mother Earth, or is there a difference between the two?
No, that's an expression of the goddess, and that would be when we were talking with Kim earlier, and I mentioned the personifications, Mother Earth is a personification of the goddess. So is Nut, the Egyptian goddess, or Isis, or Cassandra. I'm just naming some of them. I've written about 9 of them in the book.
Okay.
So those goddesses are personifications of the goddess.
Could you give us another example of like a goddess myth or story that people would resonate with and understand? Something that comes to mind?
One of my absolute favorite connections that I have to a goddess is Yemaya, who is an African-Cuban Santorian goddess. Very, very beautiful, wonderful energy, and she comes to me quite often during my creative moments. She is goddess of the sea, goddess of moonlight. She comes to us to support our creativity. She is also worshipped by many women who practice the religions of African-Cuban religions, and she comes to them for childbirth, childcare, women's issues. Very beautiful and powerful essence of the ocean.
And what was that name again?
Yemaya, Yemaya.
Okay. Yeah, that's something I'll definitely have to research. It's not a story that I'm familiar with. But you did mention like the moon, the lunar cycles. Now that I am familiar with, and there's a lot of activity measured in society, statistics, around lunar cycles. Did you want to talk about how the goddess interacts with lunar cycles and how that impacts us as energy beings here on Earth?
Yes. One of my favorite statements is that to be female is to be lunar. And to be lunar is to be female. When a woman reconnects and makes that connection to the lunar cycles, she is recognizing that they exist within her as well, in her body, in her mind, in her essence, her emotions. We are very lunar creatures. We are very connected innately to the moon cycles. Very powerful for women. Most of my circles, my goddess circles, are all themed around the moon. I have a blog written about the moon. I actually call myself a moonologist because of my love of it.
What? Now you just mentioned goddess circles. So what is a goddess circle?
So much fun, Kim.
Sounds like it.
My favorite thing to do. A goddess circle is an event where women gather in the name of the goddess to invoke her essence, to be present with them. They do this by invoking the directions, the earth, the above, the below, the within, all the spirits of the ancestors. They do this by invoking spirits of specific goddesses, the goddess herself, and their female feminineness. And it's usually, the way I practice them, is, again, themed around a lunar cycle. There are some power cycles that the moon offers us. And you gather, you are in devotion, you gather in sisterhood, you have ritual, you perform invocation. It can be very simple. It can be very elaborate. It is not religious. It is very spiritual, very earth-based.
You just mentioned something, Renee. You gather in sisterhood. Mm-hmm. So I'd love to get and not to turn this conversation into a negative at all, but I'd love to get your take on this, because so far as we're talking about the divine feminine and feminine energy and its love, nurturing, creativity, etc., why is it, and maybe this is just my experience, but I feel the need to ask the question. I'd love to get your insight on it. Why is it that women can tend not to be so nice and supportive of one another?
Because the goddess is missing from their life.
Okay, because that would be the antithesis of the goddess, right?
It is the absolute antithesis of goddess essence. Is the essence of the goddess, if you think of her, if you want to pick one symbol for her, it is the circle. Mm-hmm. Inclusiveness, wholeness, gathering, togetherness. All of life is a circle. You start as a small child. As you enter into your agedness, I'm like a small child again, full circle. All our cells are circles. The world is a circle. So all of life is this inclusive, spherical existence, and that is the goddess. When you remove yourself from that, you are moving yourself farther and farther away from sisterhood.
Because, you oftentimes hear women's group talk about, we need to come together and be supportive of one another, support each other as women. And then you go to these groups, and I certainly have experienced where that is not exactly the case. That's not what's going on here.
And Kim, one of the reasons for that too is the imbalance I spoke of earlier of the heightened masculine essence. Men are naturally competitive. They're supposed to be. It's a wonderful quality, competition, healthy competition. Think of hunters gathering, going out and competing in masculine prowess. I mean, that's very important to masculine energy and lifestyle. It is not natural to women to compete. It is natural for us to work together. And so we teach that in the world. We can learn competitiveness from men, but it's not our natural, most balanced state.
Okay, this is all making so much sense, Renee. It actually, I'm glad we're having this conversation because I've oftentimes wondered that myself as I've experienced that imbalance in some women's groups, and I can see exactly what it is you mean here. You talk a little bit about that there's 7 qualities that you believe women can restore, and we've got about 2 minutes till we go to break, but I'd love to, get a feel for this, what those qualities are, and then we can return back and finish the rest of those qualities.
Yes, I have chosen 7 main qualities of the goddess, and they are power, creativity, stillness, passion, voice, wisdom, and awakening. And I've chosen a specific goddess to explore that, each of those qualities with the women that read the book.
Oh, and are you able to share what goddess that is,
Yes.
or is that okay?
Absolutely. We have, for power, I chose the goddess Lilith. For creativity, Yemaya. For stillness, White Tara. Passion, Radha. Voice, Cassandra. Wisdom, White Buffalo Calf Woman. And awakening, Eve.
And where do these goddesses come from? Do they come from all different
Yes.
backgrounds, it sounds like?
All different cultures. Lilith and Eve are Judeo-Christian. Yemaya is African-Cuban. White Tara is Tibetan. Radha is Indian, Eastern Indian. Cassandra is Greek. White Buffalo Calf Woman is Native Lakota.
That's such a beautiful combination of just different cultures, and backgrounds. I really like that.
Thank you. I do too.
Yeah, it's nice because people can explore those differences. So stay with us, and we'll be back in 2 minutes.
Your conscious connection to a more mindful world. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Come heal yourself. What is healing? Healing is nothing but connecting to your all-knowing higher self that already has solutions to all your problems and is always there to guide you. Through this show, we help you to connect with that you are and help you realize the innate potential you have to heal every aspect of your life. So come heal yourself every Tuesday, 11 a.m. Eastern, with your host, Monica Goyal. Namaste.
Host your show on IOM FM, the radio network of OMTimes Media, one of the more recognized brand names in the conscious community, and is backed by the extensive marketing reach of OMTimes. Hosting a show on IOM FM immediately connects you with our extensive dedicated community. Simone Milasas would like you to know that business can be fun, which is why she wrote the book, Joy of Business. What if you could have the joy of business rather than the stress and struggle? Most of the time, the only thing stopping you from a thriving business is you. In the Joy of Business book, Simone gives you access consciousness tools and pragmatic ways to get out of your own way and to create the business, life, and living you know is possible and beyond what this reality says is achievable. Business is joy. It's creation. It's generative. It can be the adventure of living. You can purchase your copy of the book through Amazon or Joy of Business website, www.accessjoyofbusiness.com.
Welcome to The Gathering Around My Kitchen Table on Equilarium FM, Wednesdays at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Join my guests as we integrate spirituality into everyday reality with vibrant conversations, inspired interviews, and my latest channeled guidance to inspire and brighten your day. I'm Claire Johnson, and together we'll be raising vibrations across the nations.
Conscious media for conscious minds. OMTimes.
Hey there, and welcome back to Inspired Living with Mark and Kim. Special guest Renée Starr returning, talking about her new book coming out September 23rd, You Are Woman, You Are Divine, The Modern Woman's Journey Back to the Goddess. Very interesting subjects, and especially the 7 that you just went over and all the different cultures. I knew one was going to be Native American from the white buffalo, because I know that's the Native American is very much into the white buffalo. If you can believe it or not, we're in the last segment of the show. Time flies as you're having fun, as they say. And I just want to let our inspired listeners know where they can go order the book. How can they find you? How can they schedule a consultation with you or attend one of your workshops? Where's the best place to locate you, Renée?
On my website, www.backtothegoddess.com.
Perfect. And if you're in the Los Angeles, now you're in Los Angeles as well, right? You're down in Kim's neck of the woods, I believe.
I am in Los Angeles, but Kim and I are a little bit distant from each other, but Los Angeles is very spread out. Okay. I'm in LA proper, and Kim, I believe you're in the Valley.
Yeah,
that's right. I'm a valley girl.
Going back to the Valley.
Kim,
to
the Valley. Yeah.
Where can the inspired listeners locate you for what you're doing out there in Encino/Valley/LA?
Well, yes, all listeners can find me at lovefirst, lovefirst.info.info. And just stop by and visit, say hi. I'd love to meet you. I'm just really enjoying the process of getting to know everybody in our community. If you are in the LA area, would love to see you in person. So look me up, and here I am.
And if you find yourself in the Pacific Northwest or down in Seattle, Washington, I am officially moving down to Seattle. It's kind of a sad day today because this is the last day that we'll be in our house of 15 years. And we're broadcasting. I'm up in a room that I'm normally not broadcasting in because I've got packers with boxes all over the place. And the next show will be down in Seattle. And if you are in the Seattle area and you want to have a consultation with me or a workshop or get out for a spiritual hike, you can go to marklainhart.com. That's MarkLainhart.com, or you can just do a Google search, The Intuitive Prospector. And I'd love to see you in person, or we can do a phone, Skype consultation. So as we get into the last part of the show, I'm always curious to know what inspired your own goddess devotion and spirituality, Renée. What led you down to write this book and then be here on Inspired Living?
It's a very interesting journey. My own relationship with my mother was very difficult and eventually became estranged. So I didn't have a sense of sacredness or a sense of daughterness or even a sense of understanding that being a woman was very special. I didn't get that from my mother. So I didn't, growing up was very difficult without that and challenging. And as I became an adult, I knew I felt I wanted something more. I felt a suspicion or an inkling that I could be more, that women were more. And there were very few books about this topic when I was growing up. There were a lot of books coming out in the New Age, the beginning of the New Age movement in the 80s and the 90s. That's when it all exploded, and I couldn't buy them fast enough. And it suddenly became, I could see a theme of research that was all about the goddess. And the more I researched, the more I studied, the more I realized she is my divine mother, my divine parent, as the divine masculine is my divine father. And I was able to heal so much of my childhood by taking this journey with her and by recognizing my own sacredness as a woman. It healed so much and made my life so much sweeter. And then teaching it was just so important to spread that feeling.
Now, yeah, and I could see where that would be a very healing process, journey, experience. And, a lot of people on their path don't get to the point where they can write a book and share it with the masses in the way that you have. So thank you for the work that you're doing, Renée, because this book is really going to help a lot of women out there. As we take a look at, we're talking about women and the lives that women are living today. A lot of them are busy executive women. They're stressed out women business owners. I'll speak for myself as a newly, female entrepreneur. It can be a little stressful out there. What types of tips, or how does your book help women in these areas?
Well, I think the most unique quality of the message that I'm sending out into the world is that you can be a modern woman connecting to these ancient teachings, that you do not have to set up a temple in your house. You do not have to put on sacred robes. You don't have to devote your life. You can bring this in very naturally, very modernly, and very easily, and still be a goddess on earth. That is what I hope for all women, is that we recognize we are goddesses on earth, and to live that way, you can be as modern as you desire. And I like a little ancient ritual. I have to admit, I like a little bit of the robes and the altars and all of that very, very much. But sometimes I don't have time for it. And I won't give up my relationship with the goddess in order to, be a modern woman. So I have found ways to incorporate that. And that's what I share in the book too. Ancient teachings for the modern woman.
I love that these are, it's just ancient wisdom that's been around for so long that is translated in today's world, that is useful in today's world. I think that's the best way to go. If it's been around this long, there must be something to it.
Absolutely. Right? Yes.
So
yes.
You also have your own line of herbal and ritual and goddess products. Now, can this be found? Tell us a little bit about this, and can this be found on backtothegoddess.com?
Yes. I have been interested in herbs and essential oils and perfumes and magical ritualistic tools and products for as long as I can remember. The idea to start making them was just so powerful. And when I began to produce them, I realized this is part of my gift, my offering to the world. And I enjoy it very, very much. So these are also, again, modern ways for the woman to bring this ancient wisdom. So there are bath oils, bath salts, anointing oils, all kinds of different reports about the moon you can receive. I have a priestess school coming up. That's an online at-home study course that starts in October. I'm very excited about that. How to be a modern-day priestess in the world. Lots of wonderful offerings, all on the website.
And so you also do a lot of workshops and retreats. Yes. Do you, and I know that you do some very beautiful retreats out in Sedona as well. Yeah. All of these things can be found on your website too, right? Upcoming events, anybody who'd like to learn more about this.
Yes, my bookstore tour will start in October. The list of events will begin as well. All of the retreats will all be listed there.
Your book tour, my goodness, how exciting is that? Yes, you'll have where you're going to be in person and people can actually come and meet you and get a signed book?
Yes.
Wow, very nice. Okay, excellent.
Exciting.
So Mark, I know that we want to make sure we're running out of time here. Just want to make sure that we have enough time to talk about next week as well for listeners to tune in. Do you want to talk a little bit about our guest before we run out of time?
Yes, time. We're always up against time. Next week's guest is Mr. Christopher Buck. He is the owner of OMTimes Radio. So we're going to be talking about everything that he's doing with the station, all the updates and upgrades that he's making. OMTimes Radio is really growing, and we're very happy to be here on this network. We're also going to be talking about his passion, which is the Humanity Healing Program, and what that's all about and how people can get involved with that. And, we're looking forward to next week's show.
Yeah, one of the beautiful reasons why we decided to have Inspired Living on this platform was because of the humanitarian, the conscious topics that are being talked about on this platform, and all of the beautiful humanitarian work that they are doing, which I can't wait to learn more about and talk more about. There's some really interesting things that they're doing. So make sure that you tune in next week with us. And Renee, we just want to say a warm thank you with much gratitude and appreciation for being with us today again, and just sharing all of your knowledge that it's just so exciting that's all kind of come together after years of research and studying and just all of the exploring that you've done on your own to now bring this to the masses so that we can learn from you.
Thank you. It's been an absolute pleasure to be here and share all of this.
Yes, and I just want to remind our listeners, too, that Renee is very talented in many areas. I mean, not only is she a teacher and an author, but she's also a fabulous hypnotherapist, too. So make sure you – I just have to throw that in there because we've got to get that in there from anybody who'd like to benefit from her experience in this area. I highly recommend it. I've experienced it myself, and so I can speak to it. So please make sure that you reach out to Renee on backtothegoddess.com. And just a quick reminder that you can find me at lovefirst.info, and Mark Lanehart you can find at marklanehart.com. Mark, you've got any upcoming events or anything that you want to share with the listeners before we sign off?
Yeah, just the move and getting established there, and then heading to Asheville, North Carolina, and London, England next month. So that music sounds like it's the end of the show, Kim.
Thank you, everybody, and look forward to joining you next week right here on OMTimes Radio.
Thank you. Be kind, be caring, be compassionate. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye, everybody.